morning, everyone. This is the October 28, 2022 meeting of the St. Joseph County Election Board. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda has to do with the approval of the minutes of October 20, 2022. I only found one thing in there that I thought needed to take a look at. Under public comment, Anthony Vasoli appeared, and there was a summary of his statement that he is frustrated of the publicity that our elections are correct. I think his concern was that the publicity was alleging that our elections are not correct or are flawed in some way. So I think that just needs to be restated in a way that indicates that his concern about the publicity challenged the legitimacy of the elections. And the rest of that seems to be okay. So with that change, I would ask for a motion for approval of the minutes of October 20th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next items are the complaints of disclaimer rule violations. We have two separate complaints. The first one, and what we're trying to do today, is to, first of all, establish what the facts are and then determine what action, if any, to take as a result of any findings that we make. The first one is a group of 3 candidates who all appear on the same sign: Luke Hudnall, Mike Dobson, Joshua Goebel. And we have materials that we have received, and we've also received a memo from our election board attorney with some advice to follow as to the allegations and what our options are in terms of dealing with that. We don't necessarily have to resolve this completely today, but I do think that we do need to at least establish where we are in this process and make a set of findings. So let's start there. I think there were 2 different individuals who made a complaint as it related to those signs. And is either of those folks here today in terms of the allegation as to those signs? All right. Can we hear from then either or any of the respondents, either Mr. Hudnall, Mr. Dobson, or Mr. Goebel? Any of those here today? Those folks here today? Gentlemen, why don't you step over here and tell us who you are and what office you're running for, and tell us what you know about these signs.
Good morning. My name is Mike Dobson. I'm running for Clay Township Board.
It's Clay Township Advisory Board.
Clay Township Advisory Board.
All right. And have you seen the photos that came in with a complaint about the signs? Can you tell me about these signs themselves?
So the signs are message board signs that have been posted at 5 different locations throughout Clay Township. They're signs that obviously have the 3 of us for Clay Township to be elected. It was our fault not to tell the vendor that facilitated putting them out there that there needed to be a disclaimer on it. Once we were made aware of that, the following day, we had disclaimers out on all signs and took pictures of that fact.
And are these one-sided or two-sided signs?
They're 2-sided,
Okay. And is the disclaimer posted on both sides?
both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did that correction take place?
So we were notified either Monday or Tuesday, and the signs had the disclaimer on them on Wednesdays, and I did take pictures of both sides of the signs and tried to put a address and/or a street sign to identify that I didn't take the picture of the same sign 10 times to indicate the disclaimer was on both sides.
Okay, and have you sent those to the election board?
Yes.
You have.
We have
Yeah.
all of those updated sign pictures, okay? And what is the size, if you could describe it, the size of the disclaimer that is on there?
It's the same size as one of the letters that's there. I'm gonna guess, Chuck, the dimension of the actual letters is somewhere between 3/4 to 1 inch tall.
Okay,
Like the rest of the disclaimers that are on most signs out there, you can't read it unless you're right up against the sign.
so it requires someone to be fairly close to be able to read it.
You must have
if you wanted-
20,
if you wanted to st-
25, yeah.
But if you wanted to stop, it would be easy enough to read.
I think you could be able to read it, like most of them. But
Okay.
these are at intersections that are fairly busy, so you're probably not going to stop at that particular intersection.
And were these signs that were procured by your campaign or a campaign for the three of you?
So Josh asked if we had any access to signs. I know a gentleman that leases these signs, and so I contacted that individual to get signs for us, and then I know all the property owners that the signs are on and got permission to facilitate putting those signs there. And those signs actually went out last weekend, so they have not been out there a long time. So again, we corrected the mistake of not having the disclaimer on them within 24 to 48 hours.
Any questions from other board members?
Yeah.
Tom?
Is there additional space on the signage right now that if we asked you to make the disclaimers a little bit bigger, that you would be able to do that?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay. Okay, that's my.
I did not know if there is a particular required dimension, but if need be, we can make the disclaimer larger.
Yeah, I think you hit on a very interesting point. I mean, all of us who put yard signs in, you know, the only people who can actually read that disclaimer are people who are walking by as opposed to driving traffic. But I think that the statute, and our council has pointed out that the statute indicates that it has to be legible.
Okay.
And so my next question is there any foot traffic in that area where those signs are, or is it primarily all vehicular traffic?
I wouldn't want to walk on most of those streets.
Okay.
So I'd say that the vast majority of the people that are going by these signs are driving.
Okay, well.
Right.
I mean,
Rita, any questions?
None.
so would you guys be willing to make the disclaimer larger so that, and then test it, drive by and test it to make sure that just not as you're driving by, but assuming that you're stopped at the light and you can actually look over and see the sign? Would you be willing to do that?
I will make the disclaimers as large as I possibly can.
Okay. And can you provide us with pictures of that
I
once you
will.
make those amendments?
Yep, yep.
And any other signs that you have out, do they have or do you have any other signs out? I should ask that question first.
Nope, that's it.
Those are the only, that's the
So
only
the signs that I provided to you showing the disclaimer, those are the only 5 signs that I have out.
Not referring to yard signs, though. You have yard
I
signs
do
out as
not
well.
have yard signs.
Oh.
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay, let's hear then also from the other gentleman who is here.
Thank you.
And
Good morning, Josh Goebel. I'm also running for Clay Township Advisory Board. I don't really have much more to add than what Mike had already said.
I do want to point out, because we've exchanged email communications about this, but I do want to point out publicly that when the complaint came in, Mr. Goebel responded almost immediately by reaching out to me to say, we'll get out there and do whatever we need to do to get this corrected. and got out there with the disclaimers. And I think our big concern after that is, as you can glean, is to make sure that the disclaimers are legible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the only one of the three that actually has a committee. So the original email that went out, I think Monday or Tuesday, whenever it went out, there was an S missing in my email address, so it didn't come to me. So I didn't get it until the following day, which I think was Tuesday morning, or even maybe Wednesday morning. And by Wednesday afternoon, the disclaimers were put on all the signs, so.
And Mr. Goble, you heard Mr. Dobson's comment about making a change with respect to the sign of the disclaimer if in fact we determine that is appropriate. Are you okay with doing
I'm
that
fine
as
with
well?
that. Yeah, whatever we have to do to be in compliance, we'll do. That's no problem.
All right, thank you. Any other comments you'd like to make?
No?
Any other questions, Rita?
No, no other questions, thank you.
And Luke Hudnall, is he here?
Luke wasn't able to make it. He had work meetings this morning starting at 9.
All right, thank you. Well, I think we've established a factual record that indicates the kind of the origin of the signs and where they came from, and the fact that there was initial noncompliance and that there was, upon notification, compliance, at least as best those whose sign it was were able to determine. But I do think that it's appropriate for us at some point to make a determination as to what's an appropriate size of the disclaimer, as Mr. Dixon indicated. And if I could ask council also, do you have any recommendations or any way of determining what might be appropriate? I know that the state statute does not specifically say, as it relates to whether it's a billboard or this type of sign or a yard sign, what the size ought to be.
I'm reading the statute to be on a case-by-case factual basis. And I'm saying that because the disclaimer must be of sufficient size to be clearly readable by the recipient of the communication. And Mr. Dixon's excellent pointed question to that issue, you know, can a motorist see the sign if they're, or the disclaimer as they're going by, I think really hits on that issue. If people were, if this was a mixed-use pedestrian as well as motor vehicle traffic, then I think a smaller disclaimer would be sufficient, given the vague language of the statute. But given what we heard factually, primarily a motorist, that you know, we need someone that can actually read it from their vehicle.
It sounds like the best way to give advice would be to describe a typographic point size, if you will, for the size, or in terms of dimensions, so many inches high. Can you have resources, or is there some way that you can make a recommendation within a few days that we can then pass along as it relates to this?
For a sign like this or a yard sign?
I would say, since we're dealing with this issue, just for a sign like this that is primarily viewed by motorists.
Right. Well, if you look at the bottom of that sign, there's an area under the word, or the last name Hudnall. Something on that bottom line there of letters that are about equal size, I think would suffice under the statute.
If you go onto the state website, there is a whole little pamphlet with guidelines for disclaimers, which we hand out also to candidates when they come in if they would ask for it. But so it is very vague, and
That does not say a very specific, a point size either, or a dimension size.
nope, just that it's on there.
All right.
I think, you know, being ocularly challenged, I think if we had a rule of thumb that if Tom Dixon drives by and can see it, that's good enough. Because generally, if I can see it, most everybody else can see it.
You're going to have to be available for every sign in the county then. You gotta be careful there what you ask for.
But it is, I mean, I am a little bit concerned that with that, if it's made the same size as the rest of the sign, I don't know if there's enough space. I think the requirement is it's got to be readable by somebody who's a passenger in a car or a driver in a car at a stopped position as they look at it, just like if someone were to look at a yard sign standing right off of my yard, they'd be able to read that.
Yeah, I mean, but if you look at yard signs, you can't read
You
them.
can't
as
read
long
them.
as-
I know, that's the thing. I think it's a good faith effort to make sure if somebody really has I think the whole purpose for it is to track who's making these announcements, you know, who's putting this stuff up. And if somebody's really sincerely concerned about issuing a complaint, they're going to want to say, well, who's doing this? And if we don't know who's doing it, we need to find out.
Right. And so-
But it's not a very passenger or pedestrian-friendly location, so we do have to make it big enough for, I think, for at least for a car that's idling at that location to be able to read it.
Well, what I would suggest is that we, then, with respect to this matter, I think that we can close as it relates to the findings. But I do think that we need to make a recommendation and perhaps get that out within a few days, and perhaps, and we can do that perhaps by advice from council and then kind of our own suggestions. I don't know that letters that are as, because the disclaimer typically has more words in it, I don't know that it'll fit on the bottom, across the bottom of the
Right.
sign. But I do think, if we look at what's generally accepted as yard signs and look at the kind of the ratio, I guess, between the size of some of the lettering on the yard signs and the size of the lettering on some of the disclaimers, maybe we can get a sense as to how big the disclaimer ought to be. Do you know how tall the letters are on the signs themselves? It sounds like 4 inches or 6-inch letters,
They're probably more like about 10 inches tall.
10-inch letters?
8 to 10 inch letters.
All right. So that might be the basis for determining what that ratio ought to be. And then what I would suggest is that we get, within the next few days, is making an advisory recommendation, if you will, because it won't be an official action of the board, an advisory recommendation as to the size those disclaimers ought to be. And then we can just kind of review where we are at the next meeting and dispose of this matter at that point. So that's what I would suggest.
I think that's a good idea, and also, there was the fourth person, Deborah Watts, but I think we've gotten evidence that she's in compliance, so I think we
Let's,
can
is
kind of pass
is
over
Deborah
that.
Watts here? Okay, she is here, so let's deal with that matter separately then,
okay.
as a separate, we can deal with that issue also. All right, so I would entertain then a motion to table this until our next meeting.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Okay.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, and we'll get some email out as it relates to the disclaimer, and then the disclaimer size, and then go from there. And it'll just be advisory, but it's probably a good idea to follow it. Great, thank you. Thank you. All right, Ms. Watts, could we hear from you also? Okay, could you state your name and the office that you're running from, and an
Yes, Deborah.
address, please? Sorry.
And I'm sorry,
And an address, please.
of myself. Okay, Deborah Watts. I live at 64950 Mulberry Road in South Bend, Indiana, 46614, and I'm running for the trustee for Union Township.
All right. And there was an allegation that some of your signs did not have a disclaimer on them. As I went back and looked at the emails, I thought I had seen one. It seemed like maybe a hand-done sign of some sort that did not have a disclaimer, but then you produced some photos of your regular signs that did. And
Yeah.
could you tell us what you know about those?
Well, I have a sample here in case the email didn't go through, because I've had trouble with the internet out at my house
Yeah, I
the last few days.
I
And
think-
so
Go ahead.
I do have a disclaimer on my yard signs and my little cards that we handed out. I don't know how many days ago, somebody put a sign up that was hand-painted on their own property. He left for Florida, he apologized to me and said that it was his fault that there was not a disclaimer on there, and whatever we needed to do to take care of it, we would.
Okay.
I just didn't feel right about just going onto his property and taking care of that until he got back with me.
Okay. So this was not a sign that you had put up or your
No.
campaign had put up, but it was just
It
Supporter.
was a sign done and just put up in the night, and the next day it was up.
all right. I think I recall seeing that, but I lost it in the email somewhere.
Is that the one we addressed at Rita at my first meeting? Was it the same one? I know we had one that didn't have a, no, it was a different
No,
candidate? Okay.
No, this was a separate one that I
Oh,
sent.
yeah, okay.
All right.
I think we need to
Okay.
order that gentleman back from Florida to testify in front of us.
No, I'll accept that. It was clearly a handmade sign
sure.
that I saw, and obviously, those kinds of expressions are the kinds of things that you don't have a whole lot of control over, right, that pop up from time to time. I mean, it may be technically that individual should have put the disclaimer on it, on the other hand, but I do think it's appropriate either to, if the sign is still up, and if you clearly have his permission, to go ahead and add something to it at the bottom, some kind of a disclaimer. I think that's probably the easiest way, as opposed to just taking it down without telling him.
Yes, I would do either one, whatever, he said whatever you guys decide, so.
I think the most appropriate approach would be to add, just add your disclaimer that you have on your printed signs, and then deal with it that way. And I would think the same size, you heard the discussion before, the same, because this is just a yard, these are just yard signs, right?
This one is more of a, what do you
Banner?
call that, particle board, like
Oh, so
bigger
it is a larger one.
And so
Okay.
my actual name is 6 inches, then the other letters are probably like 12. I mean, you know, it was hand done.
Right.
So, and it's on the highway, very visible, you know, so. However big you want it, or if it's too much work, I will just take it down.
Again, and I guess the question is, since you and your committee did not pay for it, you really can't add your standard
Right, that's what, yeah, that's,
disclaimer on there that it was paid for by your committee.
I believe it is on commercial property, so I
It is, the sign is on commercial property?
think so. Yeah, and also with reference to that, when Mr. Goebel reached out to me, when he first became aware of it, he was the one who suggested, I'll go put my thing on there and I'll ask the guy if I can pay him $10 for the sign so that he could actually legitimately say paid for by. So maybe that's a good solution. It's just some modicum of a donation from your campaign to pay for the sign, and then the lettering sort of to match what we've been discussing with the last group to make sure it's legible to somebody passing by with their vehicle.
okay, did you come up with a size? Because I didn't, I
No,
wasn't
that's
able to
what
hear
We did
him.
not. What we're going to do is
Okay.
confer with our attorney
Okay.
and perhaps use some kind of a ratio that, you know, if the largest lettering on the sign is, say, 10 inches or 12 inches high, then it needs to be a certain percentage of that.
Okay.
Just so there's some ratio, in other words, so it's not something that's, you know, about this tall, even though the sign has lettering this big. So,
I mean, I can shed some light on that. This sign's a little bit different than the first one.
All right.
So there's a different statutory provision that would necessarily apply to this. And so the statute does give us some clarity when we're dealing with yard signs, posters, flyers, newspapers, magazines, or direct mailing. And 12-point font is sufficient for those types of mediums.
Okay.
For a disclaimer.
All right.
The other sign being, I don't know how to describe it, but it was much larger of a sign, doesn't fit that category.
okay,
And so it's rather, that one was rather vague, in that the standard is of a sufficient type to be clearly readable by the recipient. So the yard sign, mailings, 12-point font is sufficient.
okay. Again, I guess the question is this a yard sign or is this a billboard? Given the size and location, it sounds like it's more like designed to be a billboard
Yeah.
type of sign.
Right.
That would be my only concern. And I suspect that the rules for billboards are a little bit different, although I don't know how those are defined either. Well, why don't we do the same thing as it relates to that sign? Why don't we go ahead and confer and then send out what we believe is an appropriate recommendation? You know, the underlying question is it readable? And that is the issue. Readable by someone who might be either driving by or walking by. Could you tell me a little bit more about the location? Is there much pedestrian traffic there? Is it all?
No,
It's just
it's
all
just all,
motor?
there are 3
motorized traffic.
businesses and it's all motor, yep.
Okay. So someone just be glancing at it as they go by. All right. Why don't we then, again, confer with our attorney and then send out a recommendation as it relates to that? But again, you said the size of the lettering you thought was the largest lettering on the sign.
I want to guess 12 inches maybe in the middle.
All right.
The trustee part.
Right, okay. Okay, I think that establishes a factual basis for the sign. Thank you for coming. And why don't we then also table this matter for disposition at our next meeting?
I move to table it until our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll be in touch by email as it relates to all of these signs. Thank you. All right, let's go along to item 5 on the agenda, poll worker training. The first is materials. And I believe that John Butler has sent out, is it a final version of the materials? Penny, do you know, or, yeah, that's my understanding
But he
from
did,
his email.
last week.
I think it went out last week. I have not had a chance to look it over completely. I know there were just 3 or 4 edits in there.
Well, I think he posted it to the, because the letters already went out, so.
So it's already posted. Okay. If we have to make a few tweaks here or there, we can always do that. But yeah,
The PowerPoint presentation needs to be approved today, and it needs to go online today, because our first training is next Thursday. Poll workers are already wanting to do their training and watch the video. The materials are available online, but the PowerPoint presentation cannot be available until a vote from the board.
okay, I know there were a couple of recommended changes to the PowerPoint. I made a couple early on, but then there were a couple of other ones. I know, Amanda, you had made one suggestion. Thank you for that. And I assume those have now been incorporated into the, have you taken a look at it to determine if your suggestions were incorporated?
I spoke to John. He's just waiting on approval from the board to post it.
Okay, with your changes in it?
Yes.
All right.
I'm looking at the website now, and it's there, and I can click on it, and
Okay,
it
so-
starts. So
Okay, he must have gone ahead and posted
So it's
it.
ready to go.
approval or not,
So it's
it's
ready to go.
live on the
All right.
website.
All right.
If I'd have seen it yesterday, I would have probably watched it, but I just saw it today. I turned my sound off, and it started going, so.
I think he did that this morning, because it wasn't yesterday
Probably,
afternoon when I
yeah,
looked.
I
but
didn't see it
either way,
yesterday either,
yay.
so.
John is very confident in our approval, I see that.
Backdating our approval as well.
Well, obviously,
Okay, that's
after
better.
we watch it at the training session, if there's tweaks, we'll know.
Well, yes, we'll be
I don't think there was enough change in law to make any difference. Majority of it was primary to general and, move on.
Right, there are a few, I know, very minor tweaks that had to do with a few changes here and there. All right, well, I would ask then for a motion to approve the PowerPoint with all of the amendments that have been suggested.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Aye. Okay, PowerPoint training is approved. Next item is non-confrontational tactics for poll workers. This is a video that had been suggested. I can't remember what the original source was, but it had to do with what happens if there's an issue at the polls. How do you manage a situation that may become difficult if people are upset for one reason or another? And this, I think the recommendation, it's about a 15-minute video, and I don't believe that it was, I think the sense was that it was too long to include in the formal training, but the question is, should we include it up on the website as an additional resource for poll workers if they'd like to look at it, but also mention it, that during the training is that it's available, it might be useful, take it from there. So I would then entertain a motion that we post it to the website and make it known that it is available for additional training.
If I can just add to that, I think I would suggest that maybe the election commissioners that are appointed by the county, which I'll need from, by the party chairs that will serve on election day, be ones that will watch it
I think-
along with the video, along with the PowerPoints.
Along with the
But these
training.
would be the Republican and Democrat election commissioners that get appointed to go out and assist on election day. So I will need equal parts.
And Rita, how many commissioners do we appoint from each party?
It's usually been 3 to 4. So 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So sometimes they bust up the day, but they need to be there, at least by 5:45 in the morning. So if they have any questions until we close the polls at 6 o'clock. And they would go out to the polls in case there was any issues in a bipartisan way to resolve any of these problems. And I think, Clint, if I'm not mistaken, it's under 3-6-5-21.
That's correct.
Okay.
So let me see if I've got the motion correct. I'll move to post the non-confrontational tactics video onto the website with a recommendation for everyone to watch it, but also making it mandatory for the election commissioners to review it ahead of the election.
Well, they can even review it while they're down there on
Oh.
election day.
Okay,
Right.
so that they
Yeah.
take out the part
They
about
just,
ahead of the election.
I just think it's a good suggestion.
Okay, so my motion is that it's posted to the website with a recommendation that everyone watch it and with the indication that it's mandatory for the election commissioners to watch it.
So again, if I can have those 4 names as soon as possible with emailed to me, and then I'll share it with the election commissioners, with the election board.
Right. And we have a motion. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Aye. That motion passes. All right, and the third item is county election and polling place security plan. I believe last time we made available the document that was issued by the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. It was a fairly long document, but it had a lot of illustrations and forms and so on, and checklists and so on, that would be useful to have read. A lot of it deals with things that are very unusual, tornadoes, earthquakes, things that aren't likely to happen, but they're also had to do with active shooter issues and things like that may come up, unlikely to come up, but it might be good for folks to be aware of these. And again, the question is, this is just issued in October of 2022, so it's very recent. And it might be appropriate also, maybe our deputy election commissioners, I'm trying to think of who ought to have access to this. Certainly we should, and being aware of it.
Sure, I'll just make extra copies of it, and we'll have it down there on election day.
I think that's appropriate. And then if it's just available, I don't know that we need to actually make any kind of a formal.
Because I won't be able to send it unless I have the names.
Right. I think if we have these available for the deputy election commissioners, then they would be the ones that would be most likely to implement that. But this, of course, certainly can be available to anybody who wants it. Buddy Cursis is the one who forwarded it to us and made it available. All right, let's move on to item 6, travel board. The issue had to do with travel board for election day itself. And
Right.
I know there was there's a statutory issue that had to do with the travel boards by statute are, I think, only available until noon on
The 7th,
Monday before
right.
election. But there'd been a request, I believe, from Memorial Hospital, and I don't know if anybody else, to make those available on election day. And the question was, can we do that? And then, if so, should we do that?
I mean, it can be done, but it has to be a unanimous decision, so it would be something that would just come up on election day itself. So it's just whether, on that day, if we did get a phone call, which in the 30-some years, and we've only had one, but that we would all have to agree, yes, let's get a board over there to the hospital to do it.
Okay, so this is something, well, we will be in session, of course, all day during election day, And so I guess, are the board members comfortable with, if the request comes in on election day, say from the hospital or any hospital, that we can actually act on it that day to send out the board?
Yeah, and I don't want to, I don't want there to be any real surprises on that. The feedback that I get from the Republican side is we're strapped enough. I would guess that that's probably everybody's feedback. We're strapped enough to, as it is on election day, to be at the beck and call of groups that should be asking for that assistance ahead of time and arranging that ahead of time. So, I mean, I'm not sure that what position I would take, but that's just the feedback that
Well,
I've got.
the only thing is, we don't know until,
Yeah.
see, because travel board is only open till noon on the 7th, and it would have to be that night or that morning or that day that they would have been into the hospital, not if they've been in there. It
Oh.
would just be admitted on that day.
Yeah, so someone who had been in the hospital for a week
Yeah,
would
that
not-
they can
presumptively
have
not be
travel
able to
board to
use
do
it,
that
but-
now. It would be just in case
Could, let me ask,
somebody fell and broke their leg and they're in the hospital.
so let me ask this question. Could we also deputize our deputy election commissioners to act as a
Sure,
travel board?
you can do whoever you want.
You can double their, so if they're available, that might be, because they'll be on duty anyhow.
Yeah.
Suspect, so,
I just throw this out there for future discussion too after the election, but we might also want to look at actually creating polling places at our hospitals for that purpose.
okay, we could certainly take a look at that.
We actually tried to get St. Joe, Mishawaka as a vote center, and they did not want to consider it at all.
I can understand that.
Good thought, though.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm comfortable deferring. It sounds like it's a pretty rare request, so the chances of it coming up are probably pretty rare, and if so, unlikely to be maybe one person who is in the hospital just that day, has not been able to vote, and so on. Penny, do you have a comment?
Yeah, the issue would be a case by case, so you would have to take each case into consideration.
Right.
Right.
This person got in a car accident at 5 o'clock in the morning on their way to go vote.
Right,
Will you send travel board to them?
right,
This person had surgery and they're waiting to go into surgery and they want travel board. Probably no, because they could have voted before because they knew their surgery was coming up. So it's a case by case, and then to send somebody, it has to be a unanimous decision on each case. So it's not just
Right.
you sending travel board on election day
right.
and vote on that. It's each case you have to vote on.
That's my understanding, is that we won't consider the question until a very specific case comes up. We'll look at the circumstances, and then, based on those circumstances, make a decision as to whether it's appropriate or not. Okay, we're comfortable?
That helps me a lot. That clears it up a lot, because my understanding of it was just basically to have people available to go to Memorial Hospital if they give us a call, but it seems very
Right, we
much
don't-
more
We
specific
don't want the
than that.
staff lining up.
Right.
Yeah.
During COVID,
Do it
the state did allow that to happen, but other than that, every other year, it's been followed by the state statute.
Okay, great.
All right, good, that clarifies that a lot. Great, thank you. All right, let's move along then move along to item 7 on the agenda, officers needed during tabulation.
I think that had to do whether you wanted to have a county officer.
Oh, right. And this would be beginning at, when the votes come in.
Well, yeah,
or
this is something
earlier in the
that
day.
we'll also need to know. It would be at central count, what time you want the people to show up for central count and what time you want to start. In the past, we've started them as early as during a presidential as 7 o'clock. So they'd have to be here at 6:30. I don't know whether you want to have them arrive at 7:30. I think we're pretty close right now to pushing 10,000, Penny?
Hold on, let me find my, I didn't get myself one.
I didn't get one.
You guys have to take a look.
Yeah, anyway, so we need to have a start time and of when to have these people come in, and also, yeah, almost 10,000. So a start time, so if you want them here at 7:30, and then you give them their instructions, and then start at 8 o'clock in the morning, which also leads me to another deadline, which I'll have, I had him verify it, which is 3/11 4.7-3-3, and Clint, if you want to go ahead and follow up on that one.
Not later than noon, 10 days before an election, each county election board shall notify the county chairman of the two political parties that have appointed members on the county election board of the number of teams of counters to be appointed under this section.
Right, these are for the provisional ballots, and in the past, it has been the two election board members, the Republican and Democrat, so you would be up here specifically all day.
Right.
And you would be reviewing anything that happened with central count, which if you guys want to know what happens at central count, make sure that you get with Penny with any questions that you have. So if you want to follow up on them, but also to verify when we're starting to tally, a lot of times they will start reviewing the provisional ballots that come in from the precincts, from the vote centers themselves. Some of them can be identified immediately because if the forms are not filled out properly, those will not be able to be used and tallied on the last day, which will be 10 days after. We have to notify these people with mail, email, phone call. We have to get letters out to them immediately that their votes didn't count. So all this information, we would have to have it. If it's going to be you two, you would let your party chairs know, and we would get a resolution ready for next week.
So my understanding is that that would be our responsibility, is that we would be here essentially in session all day to be able to rule on and act on these various challenges and issues that come up and make decisions.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm available to do that, and you available also, Tom?
I am.
All right.
So if that's agreed by the parties, that it would be these two that would be up here, then we'll get a resolution ready for next meeting.
All right, that'd be good. And that still gives us our 10-day,
Yeah,
window.
because actually, I just need to know by noon tomorrow, so if you're telling me yes today, then we'll,
okay.
And then I'll just prepare the resolution and bring it for you to sign next week.
That'd be great, okay. That'll work.
but then again, don't forget, we need times that you'll want to start.
Yeah, so my sense is, in the spring, I think we started at 8 a.m. with folks here at 7:30. Spring was a pretty light turnout, and I don't know if there were any unusual delays or slowdowns. Was spring different or atypical in any way?
No, and I think with 25 teams, and if I'm not mistaken, majority of the people are the same people that have done them in the past, I'm assuming from the parties.
We have
So we would just need
experienced
to,
people, yeah.
yeah, we would have to make sure they were here by 7:30, and we would start at 8 o'clock. And then they would have to be available if everything wasn't done the next day, and
All right, I'm fine with starting at 8 a.m. with folks to report at 7:30.
okay.
You think we'll be able to get through our work over the course of the day adequately?
If we don't, we carry to the next.
Carry on to the next day, all right?
Or the next. And it will stay in this room. We've cleared this room through Thursday, I'm pretty sure.
All right, and how is security handled on this particular room? Do we have a,
We don't,
Normally, we don't have it. that-
okay, so,
the ballots don't ever stay in this room.
okay,
If we're not in session in central count, the ballots go back to the ballot room, and then they are moved back here the next morning for work.
okay. And is that true also on the Monday before,
The ballots don't get moved up here till Tuesday morning.
Tuesday morning? All right. And so the room is unlocked in the way that it normally is, and then the ballots come up here on Tuesday morning? Okay, great, thank you. All right, are we okay then with that 8 o'clock starting time, 7:30 for the workers to report?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right,
Now, you guys have to be here at 6, so you know that.
yeah, we'll be available.
5:30, maybe.
We'll be available, won't we?
Is there something in the resolution that talks about feeding us during the day, or no? That doesn't go in the resolution?
That happens.
I heard that you were bringing breakfast home.
That's why I'm asking if it's in the resolution.
Yeah, it
I
specifically
have your
says your
number.
name.
We'll sort it out here. All right, so 8 a.m. start time then, with both.
Here at 4:30.
7:30 arrival, correct. And
Yeah.
then, Penny, you'll notify, do we have the list of workers yet? Do we know? Oh,
Can the parties make sure they contact the Central Count personnel and let them know when they're
all right.
Actually,
So,
contact
so
them so they
the request was to notify the central count workers to make sure that they know when to be here. But do we have all the contact information for the central count workers as well?
Well, the parties should have them because they gave them to us.
Okay,
He's
Yeah.
asking, do we have the list? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we have the list,
okay, you have both lists. Okay, that's good.
but the parties should notify them to be here at 7:30 and
Right.
starting at 8.
Right, and then we should do the same then as well, to make sure that it's officially from the election board that this is our official start time. So I think it's good to do it both ways.
You're saying that the clerks should go ahead and notify them too?
I think yeah, because even though these are party appointees, I do think that this, actually, the action of the election board in terms of when we start and it's not, the parties don't determine that, we determine that, even with the input from the parties, obviously. So I think that it's official, it's good that it officially go out from us. I think it can go out, think it can go out by email, and then we can follow up as necessary, just to make sure that everybody is aware.
We don't have emails.
You don't have email
I
addresses?
have their addresses and
Why don't-
phone numbers.
Why don't we just do it this way, where Rita sends that out to the party chairs with a directive to forward it to all of the workers to make sure that,
You okay
through
with
their
that,
email
Rita?
system.
Anything, I mean, we're busy.
All right.
That's just one email to both chairs for
Okay,
them to
we
forward
can
on.
go ahead and do it that way then. I just want to make sure that it's kind of the
We'll
official.
include their list so they have it.
I think that's good. All right, anything else that we need to look at under that particular item, officers needed during tabulation?
So in other
Well-
words, you don't want an officer up here until,
Yeah, that's right. That's where we started on this discussion.
What's been the past practice?
Penny? Yeah, go ahead.
We do not usually have one during central count. It hasn't always been, but there have been times that an officer is here with you guys during the after-hours tabulation. Sometimes officers are needed to go to a vote center to bring back equipment. So it's just a matter of your choice. Do you want an officer here? But usually during central count, we have somebody in the county city building at the door, and then we have somebody at the west door of the courthouse, an officer. So there's not usually one sitting up here with us during central count,
But available.
but available.
So the time then when we wouldn't have anybody at the courthouse and downstairs would be in the evening from, say, 6 p.m. on?
There would be one in the lobby. We do have one officer that comes in and stays in the lobby with the clerks while the inspectors and judges are dropping off their paperwork and equipment that they do bring back. And that officer usually leaves when the last vote center comes. So you do have one down there during that time, but then once he's gone, you wouldn't have one. If you
Okay.
wanted an officer,
I think it would be appropriate to have somebody after that time, say, maybe starting at 7 p.m., would that be appropriate? Would all be in by 7 p.m.?
that's up to you guys. You want one up here? We can
I
always
think that
have
would be, I think that would be helpful. I think
we
that would
can
be
have the
helpful.
sheriff's department assign somebody up here at 7.
I
And
think-
then they just stay with you guys until you guys
Until
are
until we're
done.
finished. Right.
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Okay, Rita will get with the in-charge courthouse security and they'll take care of that.
Great, thank you.
Just in case you had a question about something about bringing equipment up here with a sheriff, normally during Election Day, we monitor all of the activity. And if a situation were to arise where we weren't confident that the machine was tabulating accurately, there is a way that a ballot can be put through twice occasionally. And if that situation comes up and we know about it, then generally what we do is we get a D and an R to bring that equipment back up here, and then we re-canvass it, in front of God and everybody, and make sure that we get an accurate count. And I've seen where we've had a county sheriff escort to do that, and then they've stayed with the equipment until we've done that. And I've seen where we haven't. That would be your call, but that occasionally comes up, so.
And,
That would be something I would notify you about during the day, because if a situation comes up that's out of the ordinary, that's my first choice, is to notify you during the day and say, what do you want to do with this? And then,
And so we could determine at that point if we needed additional security for that particular purpose.
yeah, we've
that
called
we could
them to
ask.
meet us at the site and follow us or lead us back here. Yeah, it's occasionally, people do different things and don't all understand directions. And so our vote center techs watch and our technicians watch. And if there's anything that comes up that we don't understand or any possibility that there's something wrong, then that would be our,
All right. But that sounds like a good procedure, is to do it
Right.
again and of course, we will be available during the day to kind of help
Right.
make those decisions.
right. Well, typically, I won't bother you with anything unless it's something I don't think I can make a decision on. And then we would explain it as clearly as we could, and we don't always have 100% information. It's usually sometimes partly a guess. But
Great, thank you, Dave. Okay, so officers needed during tabulation, we're okay then with where we are? Okay. Let's move on to item 8, absentee updates.
I think our number, I didn't get one, Penny.
Oh, well, I think you did, it's behind this,
Last
but that's
page.
okay.
Last
I got it. Our cumulative return ballots, that's walk-ins, that's travel board, that's mail, we're at 9,640, closing last night. So, of course, we're more with walk-ins today and mail that we received today. Our total walk-ins is 551, and our total mail returned
is that 5,000, not 500?
Oh, yeah, let me go to the right column. That was
I'm just-
551 yesterday.
Yeah.
4,781 walk-ins, sorry, thank you, Dave. And our total returned mail is 4,773. Then, of course, we have travel board and emails, and I'm not gonna get into all those numbers, but, yeah, so we're definitely gonna have quite a few. I do want to backtrack because I forgot to do this. On election material, I did give you guys, I found it, I don't know if you guys want to use it or not use it. It's top 10 election day mistakes by poll workers. And it gives you what the mistake is and gives you a solution for it. So I don't know if you guys want to read that over and then let me know if you want us to include it in our poll worker handouts.
It's just a one-page.
It's just this one page.
Let's take a quick look at it here.
My only concern with including it is that it says in number 10, leaving midday, consider offering half-day shifts. We don't do that. So if we're going to give this to the poll workers, I would suggest we take that out. Otherwise, they're going to think they can leave half-day. We always have phone calls about people wanting to leave half-day, and we don't have the ability with the number. I mean, speaking on the Democrat side, I have 10 alternates right now. So if we had more than 10 people want to leave early, it would be a struggle to get those filled.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to suggest that. So,
Yeah, I didn't like that one either, but.
I know, I figured.
So just make it the top election day mistakes by poll workers and take out number 10. Doesn't have quite the late night with Dave Letterman oomph to it, but
And
it
this-
seems to be.
Oh, the good days.
yeah, and also, this also is more directed towards those who are actually doing the training and education. So maybe, these aren't solutions that the actual poll workers themselves would be able to do. I would think this would be good for the election commissioners to have available so that they could kind of use these occasionally. But if the poll workers themselves have these, I don't know that they could. It says, number 1, poll workers over-assisting voters when solicited. Solution is highlight accessibility issues in your training sessions. Well, that's not something, if they see that, they've already been trained. And so I don't know that those solutions help them that day, help them on election day itself. Because these all talk about how to deal with the training sessions. On the other hand, I do think that this is something that might be useful for the election commissioners when they're troubleshooting or need to get out there and deal with a particular issue or a particular problem, just so that they're more aware, and then they can focus in, because they'll have access to all the training materials as well. They'll be able to kind of focus in on these particular issues as things that they may have to deal with as they're out there during the day.
Okay,
Does
so
that seem-
then give it to the election commissioners, but then also you might use this during your training of the poll workers?
I might use this as
Okay.
something to point out, yeah.
So do you want me to include this in your things that I give to you?
I think for my presentation, I'll just kind of outline and then let the video run or the PowerPoint run.
Okay.
But yes, I want to have this available.
I apologize on the absentee, if I can go back. Today or last night at 11:59 was the last time that we could accept any type of applications that came through the mail because of the procedure time that get ballots back out. So starting today, there will be a little yellow postcard that is going out to the voters. Even if it was dated 10 days ago, it doesn't matter. We will send these notifications out. And we indicated where they could still go vote absentee, and then we gave them the website to go ahead and find out where their locations are. So we had 500 of those printed up that we'll go ahead and make sure get out. They'll be going out in the mail to any applications that come in
That are not timely, yeah.
today or
Yeah.
forward.
And my understanding is that there are a few exceptions to that
right,
rule, but
right.
you're aware of those. Okay.
But they're aware of that. It's the same thing that we've been doing for years.
All right. All right, anything else on absentee updates then? All right, let's go on to item 9, voters registration. Any updates?
We have a deadline 10 days before the election to clear out our incomplete. And these are individuals that we have tried multiple times. Our deputies will call them, and I'd say they call them probably like 2 or 3 times. We send out dispositions saying, hey, this is what you're missing, and then we give it about another 10, 12 days, we do it again. So we make at the very least, 6 attempts to try to get this information from these individuals. So we have 5?
I think it's down to 4 now.
Might be down to 4 now.
It's been crossed off.
But these are examples of what people are missing. And clearly, we can't take over the phone, are you a citizen of the United States? Are you 18 or older? Or they're missing a signature, or no birth date, or they say that they put the last 4 of their ID number, but they have not. So we need to get these out of our hopper
All right.
moving
And
forward.
So these are folks who have attempted to register to vote, but have been unsuccessful because they had not completed the form.
Correct. Actually, Elizabeth, the very last individual on the front page, she was a absentee voter print disability, but when she gave the driver's license number, it actually comes up a guy that is not related to her with totally different names, totally different. So it's actually off by 1 number, and I have myself called her 4 different times and left messages and sent to disposition saying, hey, we need your information.
Right, because that's part of the problem with the program. If 1 number was input in error, it doesn't make
Yeah.
that person qualified to
Can't
do it
Can't
online.
accept it, right?
Yeah.
Understand.
We also send, just for the board's edification, we also send emails if we have email addresses. So we're calling, they're getting mail in the mail that gets forwarded if there's a forwarding address that the post office has, and we send out emails. So every possible attempt, other than going up to their door and knocking, is done to ensure that these voters can vote. So these last 5, we've not been able to resolve. We just need to reject them, and unfortunately, they won't be able to vote.
We've also gotten to the point where you can pull up their driver's license and we can see where they are, and we make an attempt to email at that address as well. So, I mean, it's another step we don't have to do, but we're just trying to get them registered.
Well, it sounds like there's been quite an effort. Could you, do you have a number as to the total number of registrations in this particular cycle since it last reopened after the primary? Because it looks like it's a very, very small percentage of the total attempts.
Well, I know at one point, it was maybe back in August, we had 10,000 at that point.
Yeah, we looked from like July to, I think it was September, actually. And there was 10,000 registrations that our office had touched in some way or another. I can look and email the board so that you guys can have kind of an idea from the primary to now. But, I mean, we are constantly, whether it's a correction or an address update, a name change, someone's deceased, like, it is, I'd say we're probably close to 30,000 since the primary, if not more, of registrations that this office has touched.
Okay, so this is a very small percentage of that total amount that you deal with. So that's really very good. It's really a very good job. I'd like to thank you for following up on those and taking care of it.
Thank you.
If I can just follow up on one thing, talking about absentee, you guys will have somebody available in VR at the next 2 Saturdays and Sundays, right? With us being open, because if absentee has questions,
Yes.
they have to call up to VR. Okay.
And we're open to the public as well. So if a voter is downstairs, they have an issue, they have a question, and they need to speak to voter registration, they are allowed to come up here to the 4th floor. We are open to the public from 8 to 4 Saturday and 12 to 4 Sunday.
Very good. All right, let's move along to item 10, vote center and equipment updates. Dave, anything for us?
I did talk with the principal of Mishawaka High School yesterday. He was apparently on vacation when I emailed him the first time and did not actually admit that he received the email, so no way to know, but I think that our attorney had talked to him by that point. We have the East Gym, so that's the space we were looking for. Now we have to negotiate with the athletic director as to when we can get in to set it up. But we're so in process.
All right. And again, thanks to both of you for following up on that. I know that was an issue.
Yeah, and I have now established a contact with the operations director of Mishawaka Schools that had passed away in September, his replacement. I have now talked on the phone with him at length, so we're pretty good to go there. And then as far as equipment goes, all of the equipment will be sent to the vote centers on Wednesday this next week. It is all ready to go, except that the poll pads are sitting on all of their respective ones because we will sync them on Monday before we pack them up, just to give all the changes in records and absentee voting a chance to catch up. So we'll sync them one final time, verify that they're correct, and then we'll put them in the ballot boxes for transport to the sites. And then Tuesday we stage them. And then on Wednesday, the highway workers start showing up at 7 a.m. and busing them out to the various sites. So,
And Brian got all the PPEs to you?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, they're out there. Then the vote center tech training begins next week. In the evenings, we don't have poll worker training, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. At the moment, I have 43, although one hasn't indicated when they'll attend training, and that's always kind of a red flag for me. If they don't show up at the warehouse, I really can't use them because they can't make the poll worker training. That's something different. They can watch it online, but we really need them to be at the warehouse so they can interact with the equipment and know what they're doing. I have 2 prospective ones as well. Like I said, I try to get 6 extra. I have, in some elections, hired as many as 52 and wound up not having enough to cover all the vote centers on election day. So they drop out for various reasons, so.
A representative from RBM, Mark, was here this last
Mhm,
week.
he was
and
here
got all
this
the
last
machines.
week. He got all but 2 of the freedom votes, so 692. We need 679, so we should be good there. We still have to do we'll go ahead and test them again to make sure that they work, but.
And he also mentioned he did the training for the
He
techs.
did.
And
He
he said there
trained
were a
our-
lot of good questions that were asked, and then he redid the little handout.
Yeah, he gives us a more in-depth technical handout from Unison about the equipment, and all of our techs sit around, he sets up the equipment, and we try different things, we try and mess it up, we try and, basically screw with it to see if, it's gonna work right. So, and then he answers, we talk about things that might come up on election day. It's always good for our technicians to get that. We have 2 rookie technicians, and this way, it's fresh in their mind when we get to election day. You forget between elections past what happened, but,
And we will have 2 representatives from RBM here on Election Day also, so
right. Yeah,
we'll have
so,
them speed dial Unison just in case.
right. So as far as I know, I think we're good to go. In fact, we took off last Thursday night and didn't work, just because there wasn't really anything significant to do. We do have to put together the inspector bags, but that only takes us about an hour and a half, and we believe we have all the materials now because we have the signs, so.
Which the signs are available down in the clerk's office of the vote centers. If anybody wants to come and get some, we can hand out a couple of them to each individual. We have a few extras, so. And the county police were given the vote centers also to place out 10 days prior to the election, which
Right.
they picked up those the other day also.
Yeah, we put those bags together in our odd time on Tuesdays and Wednesdays when we're shipping equipment out. So, because usually they come down here the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, so we'll have them ready. But I did, in the past, it's been confusing. Originally, there's a small envelope in the inspector bag, and what goes in that envelope are keys for the equipment, and all of the tapes that the equipment generates, as well as the flash drive that's used to tabulate the results. And they put that stuff in that envelope. Well, since we've gone to the vote center techs setting up the sites the day before, they really have to have the keys to do that, and so we don't put them in the envelope to begin with. And then typically, we just have the vote center tech keep the keys because they're the ones who are supposed to be changing paper, which is a key is required for. They're the ones that have been taught how to correctly remove the flash drive at the end of the day, which the key is for. And so because the envelope says the word keys, we've made up a sticker that says keys will be given to your vote center tech for setup on Monday. And then we actually would prefer that the tech just bring them back to our warehouse at the end of the day on Tuesday. We make them bring all their stuff that we've given them back to us as they leave, so we know what time they ended. And if we just collect the keys then, as well as the various other things that we've given them, that just makes it easier for us. We don't have to go sorting for those later.
Hey, Dave, how many rolls of the
There,
paper for
there
the
will
freedom
be,
votes?
there will be 2 extra rolls of poll pad paper and 4 extra rolls of freedom vote paper sent to each location to begin with. Each of our technicians will obviously, the 8 of them that are roaming around will have extra paper by the case, so. And the vote center techs are instructed to notify us if they're out of paper, so we can get some dropped off. With, many of the sites, 14 or 15 freedom votes, it's not really that big a deal. What typically happens is people use the ones closest to the door, and they run out of paper, but there are other ones in the room that have paper, and, it takes a little time to get them changed, so.
And Dave, you have a way of logging in the keys or the access to the machine?
Yeah, yeah,
So
we-
you know you've got each set back.
Correct, right. Yeah, we don't distribute them until they show up for setup, and then we know who has them. And then, then we, as they come through the warehouse, we check them off the list to make sure they brought back what we're supposed to get back. And I have a list of seal numbers that are in all the pieces of equipment, and I will publish that for distribution at training to the inspectors, because it's a seal list of the various seals that are in place on the equipment. Some they're not to break, some only get broken under certain circumstances, but I give them that list. But while I have the list and it's complete, there's always a chance when we're packing them up and moving them around that we'll inadvertently break a seal and have to change the number, and so I hold off letting that go until after we've sent the equipment, just so I know that that's what it was. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, before we get to public comment, I've got one more additional item. We did receive a letter from Attorney James Masters, who had been engaged to represent Rita and myself in the ongoing litigation. We had approved his engagement, but he was also going to submit an engagement letter for that purpose. He has done so, and it sets out his hourly rates at $300 per hour, associates at $250 per hour, paralegals at $100 per hour. He has discussed this with, or negotiated this, I guess, with County Attorney Michael Mish, who has approved it. And he is asking, and the rest of this letter is a typical engagement letter that attorneys often see in terms of so on, cooperation and so on. And so I would ask the board then to approve this engagement letter, and we'll pass it along. And I know, Tom, you would want to abstain.
I'll move for it to be approved, but then I'm going to abstain from voting.
All right? And a second?
I feel like I'm in a moving frame today, so.
That's all right. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the engagement letter with Attorney James Masters in the litigation now pending. All in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
One abstention.
All right.
I have a question, Tom. Did you also get an approval from the county for your costs to be covered?
No, I don't have any costs. I'm a plaintiff. I don't
Well,
have
I'm
a-
talking about your attorney, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm not responsible for any of the attorney's fees of the other co-plaintiffs are covering that. So my understanding is that all of the plaintiffs' attorney's fees are being privately paid, and I'm not on the hook for any of that. So I didn't even know what the meaning of the word dark money was, but I knew I didn't have any to pay for any attorney's fees.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Hey, Tom, if I can, excuse me, Tom and Chuck, if I can please make sure that at our next meeting that we indicate the shoots at elections as part of a discussion, and also the poll watchers and certificates. The parties will have to provide me with a list of the people. So if we can just make sure that we have everything in line for them.
Yeah, and we can just make, Penny, make sure that we have those on the agenda. That'd be great.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business before we go to public comment? All right, we're open for public comment.
Susan Baxmeyer, St. Joseph County Republican Party. I wanted to ask you, when we were talking about vote centers, if we've got confirmation on the door numbers for all 42 vote centers. We had a list, and 14 of them were missing. So I'd like to ask if those have been confirmed yet, so we could have those for our poll workers.
In my reviewing of our setup and where I have had it available, I don't actually talk with all of them. Sometimes I'm going through various channels, but I have updated the list that you gave me with what information I currently have, so
Okay.
that's this. You might look at it, you might have a couple of questions about what I've written there. It's not always obvious. I know that in the case of Walt Disney Schools, it's not actually a lettered door because it's a door directly to the space that's kind of like I would guess it was probably intended as an emergency exit from the gym, and they're going to use that to let voters in, but it's next to door C. And then in some cases, it's generally the main entry door to the facility. There are a couple, Mishawaka High School, I'm not exactly certain what that designation on the door is. I know where it is, but the principal wasn't on the property and he didn't know, and he sent me to the assistant principal who didn't answer the phone, so I was on to the other things on my list to do and didn't cycle back to it, but I will work on any of them I don't
And do
have.
we have signs or any signs that have a, like, vote here and an arrow, or those kinds of things?
There are, the metal wire for the signs is shipped to the site on the ballot box. And there's 2 ballot boxes, and then we put 2 of the vote here signs in the inspector bags for them to put out on election morning, obviously pointing to the door. The other thing that I would offer is that when the police, the sheriffs, bring the signs to the vote centers, they're supposed to be posting them at the entry door that the voters will use, and they generally will talk with the building custodians or people to determine what door that is. So those signs are generally posted on the door that is expected to be used on election day. Where that is done incorrectly, I've had vote center polling locations at the time call me to tell me that's not the right door, and then we've moved it. But in general, that's usually what happens, is the sheriffs are supposed to find the door and post it on the actual door that's to be used.
That's exactly why I'm asking that question, so that our personnel can know the right door, instead of just main door or whatever. I
Well,
think by
in the
law,
cases of the
schools,
main-
all the entry doors
Well,
have numbers.
In the case of many of the schools, it's just the main entry to the building. It'll be the one where the office is. And whether or not that has a designation, in some cases, I'm not certain that they do, but
My sense is that we just need to make sure that we have good signage and that it's well identified. And what I would ask is that if any of the poll workers on election day feel that it's not easy to find where that is, to let us know, the election board, and perhaps if we have some additional signs that are available, putting 2 or 3 more signs out to direct
Right, and
vehicles to a certain
each of
parking
the-
lot or whatever.
each of the regular machine technicians will carry extra sign, the metal wires and the signs in case.
Right.
We've had to put extra signs out on election day before.
Right, and I think we pretty much know who are
Yeah,
people that break the rules a little bit.
which ones those are, yes.
Right,
We
right.
do
And
have
they're real good about,
idea.
the techs are good about having
Right.
extra signs to take out in case we get a phone call saying, hey, we
Right.
need more signage at.
Because, and if we have enough vote center techs, then that leaves the technicians free to do those sorts of things. In the spring, we were like 8 short, so a technician had to be assigned kind of in lieu of a vote center tech to be there all day, although they would leave intermittently and then the inspector would call me with issues. But if we have enough vote center techs, then generally all of our guys will visit their vote centers that they're responsible for in the first hour. So, we'll have some idea or some read on it. And they just go around all the day because Joe Baguki, who was a technician, has offered to work this election cycle, and we usually have an extra person anyway. Each of our technicians has between 5 or 6 vote centers, and they're geographically located, so they can, move around between them fairly regularly.
Okay.
It won't be too big of a problem, so.
Great.
And if it is, then, have somebody from the election board contact me, and we should have radios to talk to the guys, get whatever it is taken care of, so.
And the next thing I want to ask about are the top of the list of 2 of the vote centers that had problems in the spring. Swanson School, you're confident that that location has been squared away and it's where it's supposed to be this time? And also Moran School, they turned the heat off. So have we had conversations that that's, that they will have heat in that building and that Swanson School is where it's supposed to be?
We'll follow up certainly on that. And I see Dave is taking some notes, and we'll,
Yeah, I was not aware of the Moran heat issue, but I'll share that with the operations director for that school system. And Swanson, I reviewed the location that was I was not aware that if it was not in the right location on election day. I know Clay International wasn't, I know John Adams wasn't, I know Washington High School wasn't. Swanson was never on my list for not being in the right location, but I reviewed the setup drawing for the space, and as long as, but I will reach out to Swanson and confirm that that's the same space we're going to use, so.
Because Swanson was moved all the way to the back of the building.
That was John Adams.
No,
is
that was
my
Swanson
understanding.
School.
Well,
I'm quite positive of that. We heard that from more than one of the poll workers. And it was difficult for elderly and handicapped people to get all the way around the building to that location instead of, right where you would expect it to be in the main. And now on this list, you've got door 1, so I would assume that's, I'll have to drive by there and see where door 1 is. But
I have no record of an issue at Swanson School with the space from
I'm
the
quite sure we
primary.
talked about that after the primary day.
Well,
but I'll leave it
it
with
wasn't one of the ones on my list at the certification hearing that I specifically talked about.
Penny may
Penny,
have some input on this.
There was an issue with Swanson School of they had to park in the front of the parking lot and walk around the school. I do remember that. There was an issue. But I think that has been corrected with us saying that we needed the bigger spaces.
Right.
And we needed the doors. Now, I will say that the doors were not given by everybody. So on the signs that we have posted, not all of them have it. Not everybody follows directions. So when we sent the letters and asked them to put their door in the space that they were giving us, not everyone did that. A lot of them, Dave had to contact and get the space. So the doors numbers or letters may not be on the signage, but like it has been said, the vote signs will be out by that door. So hopefully everything has been addressed, and Dave has been addressing issues all along the way. So, I mean, we can only go forward from
the
what he's
best
done
that
and
I
see.
can offer is that on Monday during setup, after our technician and team has been there, we will know what the space is and what the door is. So
Okay.
I can, see what I can do to let you know if there are any that change.
Okay. Thank you for your input. All right. Pam?
Pam Clays, 1106 Bellevue Avenue in South Bend. I just wanted to double check on John Adams, the door there, because that was a big issue.
Yeah, it is door 20, but the space is the cafeteria, not the hallway.
Oh, good, that's better. That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, that creates an additional wrinkle for us, just because getting in there to set it up, obviously, it's not available until about 3 o'clock. The challenge for setting up vote centers, and I've explained this any number of times to the building principals, is that we set it up by teams in geographic regions, okay? Well, if the team has all schools to set up, they can't all wait till the end of the day. It takes about an hour and a half to set up each one. And they all have to be up and at the sites at 5 a.m. the next day. So we don't want to work them into the evening hours. And so, if every school can't be set up until after school is over, that gives you a very narrow window of time to try and get all of them set up. So we work to try and get alternate activities for their PE classes or whatever is in the space, and try and make sure we can get in earlier in the day to some of them, so.
Great, thank you. Diana?
Hi, this is changing subject here. Diana Hess, St. Joe County Democratic Party Chair. A voter came into headquarters yesterday after voting and filed a complaint. I wasn't there, but it was conveyed to me that when she entered the building downstairs and walked away toward the voting area, that the security guard shouted after her to vote Republican. That bothered her, and I guess I'm not sure how to handle this. I've not heard any other complaints. I don't know if she knew this person, why they did that, but I don't know if there's any way to address that they should, the security guards, it seems inappropriate that they should be saying anything to any voters coming through the door.
I can talk to the supervisor. I was unaware of it also.
Yeah,
And I was up there most of the day, so I don't know what time that happened.
I think it was around, I have to check with our field organizer. She's the one that told me about the
Okay.
complaint.
I'll address it with the,
It was in the afternoon after lunch, because I had heard the same thing. So it was around, I think, 2:30, 3 o'clock-ish. And there have been a few other voters that have mentioned that they've seen candidates coming in to early vote, or people who are affiliated with candidates that are wearing buttons, things like that, when they're coming into the building. So we may just want to make a general reminder that when you're going through the lobby.
When they come in to vote, though, I've witnessed where the absentee workers have told them they need to remove their. So, I mean, the people that are sitting at that door really are not under the jurisdiction of the election board, so we'd prefer them not address it and let our people downstairs address that, and they have. I've witnessed it myself.
Okay, well, I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Other public comments?
Mark Rolfus, 1219 Napoleon, South Bend. I'm speaking on my own behalf, not on behalf of any political party or candidate. In St. Joseph County, election fraud is not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. In 2013, 4 Democrats were convicted of election fraud-related crimes. 2 of them, Beverly Shelton and Pamela Burnett, were this year hired by the clerk's office to help supervise the primary election. This was confirmed by Ben Horvath. Carl Baxmeyer confirmed their employment in a press conference, and our Republican counterparts can confirm that, who were surprised to be working along with them. As a citizen, I'm not comfortable when my ballot or anyone else's ballot is handled, processed, touched, or counted by someone who's been convicted by election fraud-related crimes. I'm also perplexed that 2 of our elected officials, Rita Glenn and Diana Hess, seem to have no problem with people convicted of election fraud-related crimes participating in the supervision of our elections. So I would ask our county clerk to explain why they were hired, what exactly their roles were, what roles, if any, will they have in the general election. And then I'd like to ask our electoral board members to pass a resolution as a check on the clerk to prohibit the clerk from hiring or appointing anybody who's been convicted of an election-related crime in participating in the handling, processing, or counting of ballots in the November election. Thank you.
You want to add anything?
If I could just make a comment, I don't hire anybody that works at the vote centers, the absentee, and/or central count. That is not a duty of the clerk.
I would like to speak to that. Again, I will state for the record that neither of those women are working in the general election. The party does recruit the poll workers and sends them to the clerk's office and the hiring, but all you need to do is check with Human Resources and you'll find out that neither one of them are working in this election. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, let's set our next meeting date and time. We're getting up close here. What do we need to do? Is there anything? Are there any deadlines that are coming up that we need to address?
I think I mentioned most of them.
While Rita's looking, we will need to set the trainings up as a meeting also. So I don't know if you want me just to set Saturday and then recess and go into Sunday.
I think that would be fine.
And then,
What about Thursday? We have Thursday night also.
right, yes, sorry, so we could, Thursday's already set for us, so we don't have to request that time Saturday. And Sunday's already set for us, so we don't have to request that time on the, so those will be set as meetings, so if you guys need to discuss anything, they are open to the public, even though it's training, so they will be posted. The other thing is we usually have a meeting Monday night before election, and we usually start that about 4 or 4:30. So, and that's usually just down in the clerk's office, so we can carry on, you guys can carry on with the vote centers if there's issues that you need to have anything done. Usually there's not, because we do it differently. It's not the inspectors and the judge going out and checking things. It's the vote center techs and, or the machine techs, excuse me, the machine techs that go out and set it up during the day. So we don't usually have anything. So you guys are usually done by 4:30 with the meeting if there was anything that needed to be discussed or decided. So, and then that meeting is usually recessed, so Tuesday, election day, can be a open meeting all day.
Right. So you don't think we need to meet again until Monday?
No, I
before,
wouldn't
or should
say
we meet-
that,
should we
because,
meet again? It'd be better
we
to
may
meet
have,
next week sometime.
you know, issue with absentee or something, so we
Right.
definitely need one next week. I don't know.
Either
Yeah, if
I
you-
mean, either that Wednesday or Thursday, you could sign the resolution. Wednesday or Thursday is right, training is on Thursday, so, you know, you guys will be here.
Wednesday is pretty open for me.
Wednesday, I would not be available if
Right,
that
you're-
matters.
right.
but
Yeah, I
We'll be
mean,
shipping equipment, so.
but I'm not real sure, but, or we could do it Thursday.
Thursday,
morning.
I have a noon meeting. I'm on the Portage Manor Board, and that's going to be meeting at noon on Thursday.
Or Thursday
But
in the
th-
morning,
other
early
than that,
again?
we could do Thursday. We could do Thursday morning.
I have a hearing at 8:30, that's probably a half-hour hearing, so I couldn't be here right at 9, but maybe if we set it for 9:15 or 9:30.
9:30 on Thursday morning, is the room available? Can you check on that?
So if it is available for Thursday morning, is it okay if I don't post Thursday night and we just recess Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning's meeting?
That'd be fine.
To go into
You'll
the
have to
training.
remind me, though, to do that. Yes.
Oh,
I'm good at reminding.
Tricia reminds me that we're here for that training that late afternoon anyway, so if we could come just a little before that and pass the resolution.
I don't care, it's up to you guys.
Is it a late afternoon, or is it?
6
It's
p.m.
6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
6 o'clock. Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, so,
So maybe if we came at 5 or something,
so 5 o'clock?
that works for me.
Because the people wander into training early, you might go just a little bit earlier.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they,
4:30.
Because they'll be coming
the,
in here.
the
will be
trainees
in
will
here.
start showing up early and wandering in and, you know.
Okay.
We have closing of absentee at 4:30, so Rita, myself will not be here because either Eric or Tricia or Tom will be downstairs also.
Well, I mean, our
So-
meetings are public, it's 5 o'clock. I don't think it's going to be that much to discuss.
Right.
So if you did 5 o'clock, it would be okay because we would be back up here.
That's what I'm thinking, is 5 o'clock on Thursday. Does that make, is that okay with everybody?
Makes sense to me.
All right. So 5 PM on Thursday, November 3rd.
Do we have anything in our budget to hire somebody to watch my dog in the next couple of weeks? Well,
Your party.
These are open meetings.
there you go.
It's because I'm here. What? I'm here on Thursday. I have the room for Thursday night.
Oh, so
Penny, can we get your
You
permission?
can't have my room. You guys can't have it, I'm sorry, it's mine.
Where did you, from what time did you start tonight?
I probably started about 5:30.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's going
So I
to
think,
be
yeah,
on
I
a,
think I just want to make
I
sure we
think we're
lock this in.
fine.
So we're okay then, obviously,
case
with,
scenario,
you're
We
going to let
should
us
be
in.
okay, yes.
Okay. So let's go ahead and set then for Friday, or Thursday, November 3rd at 5 PM in council chambers. That'll be our next meeting. That will be followed at 6 PM by poll worker training. So, all right. Anything further that we need to deal with? All right, I
Move
hear
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second?
Yeah, second, sorry. I already had my mind move into another department.
All those in favor indicate by the sign of aye.
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 Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So you guys signed all those?
Amanda, what am I sending you?
Still working.
You are sending me
Tom got
the
a head start.
inspector bag sign thingamabobbers. The inspector sign.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
No, I didn't.
I don't know the official.
I said, I don't do that. That's what was said. If you can sign them,
Yeah, I will,
Like it?
I will do that right now.